bad.
The trailblazing Left 4 Dead and its 2009 sequel redefined cooperative shooters, carving out a new path in the genre that later paved the way for countless co-op-centric experiences. Despite their best efforts, though, no development team could recapture the unique thrill of zombie killing in the Valve-owned franchise. As such, the company's decision to cease regular support on Left 4 Dead 2 marked the end of an era. A much-coveted Left 4 Dead 3 wouldn't reinvigorate things either, leaving other studios with the task of carrying the torch. But the likes of Killing Floor 2 and World War Z, while admirable in their own right, arguably paled in comparison to that which came before. With the industry still itching for a comparable zombie experience, Left 4 Dead's original creators took it upon themselves to revisit the genre through the lens of a new IP, Back 4 Blood. Billed as Left 4 Dead's spiritual successor, Back 4 Blood followed the same basic structure, pitting up to 4 playable heroes against zombie hordes in campaign and competitive modes. However, developer Turtle Rock Studios switched gears in some respects, crafting more capable protagonists, introducing card-based progression, and updating the classic L4D formula with modern systems. The anticipation ahead of Back 4 Blood's debut suggested the beloved zombie series had truly returned via another name. Yet the former's October 2021 release left much to be desired. Content-related shortcomings and a handful of technical woes plagued Turtle Rock's new property during its first few months on the market, resulting in a rapidly declining user base that never returned to full strength. This is the tragedy of Back 4 Blood. This video has been brought to you in part by Naraka Bladepoint. Naraka is a battle royale unlike any other battle royale on the market. With a unique melee-focused fighting system and hero skills, battles fought are up close and personal with limitless combat possibilities. Each of Naraka's melee weapons features a unique set of dynamic moves and powerful combos that, coupled with the game's counter system which allows you to predict your enemy's next moves, make winning more tactical and satisfying than ever. Right now, Naraka is hosting a crossover event with Wo Long, and both games are free on Xbox Game Pass. In addition, Naraka allows you to join various in-game events to secure Wo Long-styled cosmetics for free, including General Lu Bu's mask. And owners of Wo Long will be able to claim characters of Naraka in upcoming DLC. It's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight, and it's Naraka's new champion, Akos, the first hero in Naraka who's able to transform into a beast and tear up anyone on the battlefield with fast and cunning precision. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description to try out Naraka Bladepoint entirely for free from March 15th until the 19th on Steam, Epic, or Xbox with Game Pass. The game will also be 50% discounted on Steam and Epic between March 15th and 21st. We'd like to thank Naraka for sponsoring this video.
This way, people! Reloading! Damn it, Bill!
After shipping the original Left 4 Dead as a Valve subsidiary in late 2008, the California-based Turtle Rock Studios stuck around for a while longer to help produce Left 4 Dead 2 DLC. The company regained its independence in 2011, retaining quite a bit of talent, but losing the Left 4 Dead IP. Fortunately, the team once more revitalized co-op shooters upon deploying the asymmetrical multiplayer title Evolve in 2015. Unfortunately, Evolve harbored little in the way of staying power, its online servers shutting down a mere 3 years after release. Turtle Rock had no intention of giving up on cooperative games, however. Speaking with Eurogamer, studio co-founder Chris Ashton said, Back 4 Blood spawned from a longing to revisit the co-op zombie space. More than anything, the crew wanted a second chance at the genre and hoped the public was just as ready. No one within Turtle Rock had any interest in simply retreading old ground either. Changing the attitude of zombie-laden horror seemed far more inventive, allowing for the rejection of tales where dire circumstances steered the narrative to instead concentrate on what would come after the apocalypse. In short, the Left 4 Dead creator focused its efforts toward fighting against the typical end of civilization motif. an attempt at clean slating the genre with fresh ideas while simultaneously embedding the moment-to-moment feel of a Turtle Rock production. Doing so necessitated essential adjustments to the blueprint previously established in Left 4 Dead. For one, the everyman archetype fell by the wayside, exchanged for more soldier-oriented protagonists, named Cleaners, who also bore immunity to the parasite responsible for Back 4 Blood's undead hordes. The immunity engendered a different overarching objective as well. While Left 4 Dead survivors searched desperately for a safe place, the Cleaners prioritized creating safe places. Ultimately, the developers weren't driven to reinvent the wheel so much as they aimed to enrich the genre by pushing it forward. But crafting a richer experience still reigned supreme, an idea made manifest through a larger scope, expansive cooperative features, and a deeper narrative whose environmental storytelling benefited from 8 playable characters, each of whom inspired multiple playthroughs given their disparate responses to certain events. And yet, Turtle Rock's biggest changes to its previously crafted, tried-and-true formula reared their heads throughout the core systems that powered the action in Back 4 Blood. Smaller, but not totally insignificant tweaks to Left 4 Dead's winning recipe included the advent of sprinting and aiming down the sights, the latter of which bolstered the addition of weapon attachments. The one element that largely went unchanged, at least conceptually, was the AI director, or, as Back 4 Blood dubbed it, the game director. Not too dissimilar to its counterpart, the game director could dynamically modify every aspect of the experience, from changing spawn points and the appearance of fog-laden maps to enemy placement and challenges based around player behavior. Notably, this level of AI-guided control encouraged the creation of Back 4 Blood's most prominent feat, card-based progression. Turtle Rock Studios breathed life into this transformative card mechanic later in development, then iterated on the feature for no less than a year and a half. According to lead designer Brandon Yanez, regularly playing the game led he and Chris Ashton to question how users could influence the title's RNG, or random number generator. Rather than leave every game-changing decision in the game director's invisible hands, the pair thought allowing players to make their own choices would liven up the action, hence the card and progression system. Earlier iterations of the card concept were shelved during production. In a rock, paper, shotgun interview, Yanez recalled Turtle Rock's experimentation with scavenge cards that scattered more items around the world for users to uncover. Much confusion grew out of this particular setup, with playtesters struggling to identify that resources like bandages spawned from their collected cards. The team scaled back scavenge cards as a result, concentrating on bigger item drops such as the combat knife, which swapped out the unarmed bash attack for a heavier blow with a melee weapon. The progression system received plenty of fine-tuning throughout its 18 months or so of development. Even so, playing the optimal deck with the right character, weapons, and attachments could provide the means for an overpowered playthrough, though Yanez insisted a great deal of balancing went into ensuring OP runs didn't become the norm. Fine-tuning Back 4 Blood's cooperative foundation went hand-in-hand with fleshing out the progression mechanics. As Ashton told Polygon, progression systems typically prioritize the individual and, in doing so, divided teammates. The zombie game's developers chose a different route, one wherein progression features based around co-op could bring squad members closer together, as opposed to tearing them apart. It hardly translated to the preference of individual users being cast aside. On the contrary, cards were designed in such a way that players could customize cleaner builds to their likings, be it a healing-focused or tank-oriented hero. Yet, in spite of its investment into deep functionality, Turtle Rock made room for very accessible gameplay options. A classic mode boasting basic cards removed from the necessity of perk cards was instituted for those who simply wanted to have fun with a co-op zombie shooter. In some cases, fun could only perform so much of the heavy lifting.
On second thought,
With WB Games attached as publisher, Turtle Rock Studios took the industry by surprise upon announcing a new IP in a March 2019 press release. The team used an FAQ post to preemptively mitigate any confusion about suspected Left 4 Dead connections, yet it didn't quell talks in headlines or on message boards of Back 4 Blood representing a spiritual successor. Naturally, this line of thinking birthed incredibly high expectations, which reached the stratosphere when the game resurfaced with a cinematic trailer and gameplay footage during the 2020 Game Awards. Reporters who enjoyed hands-on time with the title couldn't help but draw comparisons to Left 4 Dead, thanks in large part to the analogous creature designs, settings, core gameplay tenets, and AI director-like overseer. It made sense on paper. Like many seasoned studios, Obsidian Entertainment and Frontier Developments included, not owning the rights to its original creation put Turtle Rock in a position to revive an older premise under a new moniker bolstered by novel ideas. Still, some series veterans held out hope for Left 4 Dead 3 by another name. So the instances where Back 4 Blood followed a path all its own were not always met with resounding applause. Its live service elements initially caused quite the uproar among prospective players, especially when Turtle Rock confirmed an always-online requirement that even applied to solo mode. Acknowledging the criticism in a Eurogamer sit-down weeks ahead of release, company co-founder Chris Ashton said developers were investigating the possibility of an offline mode for a post-launch update. The executive tempered expectations, though, and made no promises given the difficulties involved in seeing the task through to completion. Because Turtle Rock handled Back 4 Blood's deeply woven progression model server-side, it too would necessitate management offline for a dedicated offline mode. Wading through the ins and outs of such a feat raised many questions, chief among them being whether players who didn't connect to the internet should gain access to all of the game's available cards, or none at all. The team solved the problem not long after release, yet the lead-up to launch still saw the co-op shooter sitting on the sour end of Left 4 Dead comparisons. One of the most disappointing revelations came during the early access preview, as players learned Back 4 Blood lacked a mode equivalent to the Valve title's uber-popular Versus. Turtle Rock's competitive matches instead revolved around Swarm, an 8-player PvP offering somewhat akin to its predecessor's Survival Mode. Ashton informed fans on Discord that the reason for such an omission came down to the sheer amount of defensive equipment in-game. Defending worked far better for our game than running from A to B, the executive wrote. Considering the differences between Back 4 Blood's special ridden creatures and Left 4 Dead's traditional zombies, the decision made sense. Dissatisfaction weighed heavily on the community regardless, with some hopeful players arguing that Turtle Rock didn't understand its audience. After a 4-month delay, which allowed the studio to avoid making any painful cuts to planned content, WB Games and Turtle Rock deployed Back 4 Blood on consoles, PC, and Xbox Game Pass in October 2021. The final product demonstrated the developers at least had some idea of who would invest in their new IP. However, the title's short-term successes did not guarantee long-term gains.
That's all for today, but Back 4 Blood still has a lot more to reveal in the coming months, so stay tuned.
Back 4 Blood released to above-average reviews, the bulk of the positivity stopping short of glowing reception. The story campaign and gameplay received solid marks across the board, scratching the Left 4 Dead itch in more ways than one with its faithful reimagining of the zombie-killing action. Critics and players even grew attached to the deck-building and looting mechanics, but so much of what didn't hit the mark overshadowed the various facets that did. Technical woes and balancing issues plagued the game at launch, for example. Plus, its prioritization of fun with friends hampered the experience for those who wanted to play solo because of the comparatively limited progression system. That AI teammates usually proved inept during a mission's most challenging moments further exacerbated the dismay in Back 4 Blood's one-player offering. The PvP-focused Swarm mode similarly lacked long-term appeal when compared to the much-coveted Versus from Left 4 Dead. And of course, few were willing to set aside their fury over the mandatory online requirement. Turtle Rock later rectified a number of these issues in post-launch patches. Offline and solo progression finally entered the mix in a free December 2021 update. This selfsame update addressed balancing troubles too, adding adjustments that tackled complaints leveled against the Recruit, Veteran, and Nightmare difficulty settings. While such post-release adjustments were tantamount to Back 4 Blood's potential staying power, even more integral to its longevity was the annual pass, a $40 package that promised 3 separate expansions, each one comprised of new cleaners, special enemy types, weapons, and cards. For a time, the paid extras and free updates did little to sway the interest of existing players, evidenced by large quantities of Steam users flocking to Left 4 Dead 2 just weeks after Turtle Rock unleashed its spiritual successor. The former's resurgence resulted in concurrent player counts eclipsing Back 4 Blood's on more than one occasion. On PC at least, this trend seldom let up, since the allure of the newer title rarely outpaced that of the Valve game.
Hey, kill all sons of bitches, right?
Hopes were high that developers could maintain the newfound momentum even after shipping all of the scheduled annual pass offerings. The prospects of additional content releases seemed bright for a time, given Tencent's acquisition of Turtle Rock's parent company Slamfire Inc. in December 2021. Co-founders Phil Robb and Chris Ashton maintained control of daily operations and assured fans the buyout would allow Back 4 Blood to blossom into a long-standing franchise that thrives well into the future. Cursory sales data suggested this wasn't beyond the realm of possibility. In March 2022, Turtle Rock and WB Games touted Back 4 Blood's 10 million player milestone, wearing the achievement like a badge of honor, though actual sales numbers eluded the conversation. How much Xbox Game Pass factored into the celebratory figure never garnered mention, but US tracking data from the NPD Group revealed the zombie title sold appreciably, enough to be named 2021's best-selling new IP on consoles. Superficially impressive stats held little sway in the long run. Early in February 2023, Turtle Rock issued a statement announcing the end of production on Back 4 Blood. The AAA studio's relatively small size meant it lacked the resources to continue building new content for the apocalyptic adventure, especially since work had begun on a bigger, bolder, and better endeavor. Consequently, Back 4 Blood may dwell in Left 4 Dead's shadow in perpetuity, a weight that could burden the brand should an opportunity for its return ever arise. Thank you for watching. We'd like to take this time to thank, by name, the generous patrons who have pledged to our Hall of Fame reward tier: Alex Moretti, and those currently subscribed to our producer reward tier: Brock Piviroto, Darirap Sigurdsson, GetWrecked.com, Jonathan, Kira May, Landy K. Hayes, Mario Herrera, Milkshake. If you enjoy our content, please consider subscribing to our channel and backing us on Patreon.